we good?
Yeah. I want to hit record. For anybody that doesn't know, I'm Gary Bland. I help run the LUG in West Virginia. Today we're going to have Keith Jackson present on pfSense. So take it away, Keith.
Sure thing. All right, hello everyone. Like Gary said, my name is Keith Jackson. I'm a senior consultant with Red Hat, and today I'd like to just cover pfSense a little bit, just kind of show how it is set up in my environment. For those that do not know, pfSense is an open source firewall and router. It can be deployed as a virtual machine or purchased as a hardware appliance through a Netgate. It can also be installed to hardware appliances. So you can buy a bare bones network device that doesn't have any OS on it, and then you can install pfSense to it. It comes in two forms. You can get the community edition, which is the open source, free version that you can deploy into a virtual environment, or you can set that up in Azure or AWS. You can also get the supported versions in Azure or AWS. And like I said, pfSense, it's a firewall and router. Oh, the last bit of info I forgot. It's based on the FreeBSD project. And if you're interested or would like to see the development that goes on for pfSense, the project is on GitHub. It's pfSense.org on GitHub, and that's where they do their development. And on my screen here, I have pfSense running. One of the nice things about it is it doesn't need a whole lot of resources. So my instance of pfSense, it's running in my Red Hat virtual environment, and I gave it one CPU and about 1 gig of memory. And for what I need, it handles everything just fine. When you first log in, it takes you to this nice dashboard. It gives you all the basic rundown of your pfSense instance. It lets you know what the name is. You see, mine is just pfSense.lab.home. What the user you're logged in as, your release version that you're on. If you need to update it, just click that update right there, and it'll update pfSense on the fly, right then and there. Kind of gives you some metrics of how it's operating, performance metrics. You can see its swap usage, disk usage, and CPU usage, and load time. So going down here, one of the first things I'd like to show is what I like most about pfSense is that it has a package manager, and you can actually install additional tool sets to pfSense. So you can install perfmon to be able to iperf, not perfmon. You can install iperf to be able to test like networking, packet loss, things like that. You can install snort IDS, which will then allow your firewall router to function as an IDS IPS. You can also create custom rules for that snort so that it can pick up any unique type of traffic you may be looking for, or it can use a standard set of rules that you load into it to pick up general snort rules that'll look for common types of attacks or common types of traffic anomalies you might see on there. You can install squid so that you can do proxy. pfSense can also be deployed as either just a single instance, or you can have a HA proxy set up with it to where it's load balancing traffic using multiple pfSense instances. One of the first things you do when you install pfSense is it has you set up your interfaces. Usually that first interface that it gives you is the WAN. That's the one that it wants to configure first, because that's where it's getting its primary networking. So if you're deploying it as your primary router and gateway, then that would be your internet-facing IP address that it'll get. Or if it's set up, like I have in an internal environment, then the WAN interface is simply just riding on my primary network, and then it's managing two other networks. With each interface, you can also configure you can configure services like DHCP. It can function as a relay. It can function as a load balancer. It can handle IPv6, DNS forwarding. It has a lot of built-in features, and all of this is just right out of the box using the Community Edition. So I'll go to one of my interfaces where I do have DHCP set up. And then on here, it's just a checkbox. Just enable the DHCP, define your subnet that it's going to be managing, which if not the subnet, the range. So it'll pull the subnet info from that interface that you're configuring it on. Then you just set up your range, or you can have additional pools. So you can have blocks of IPs that it's assigning out for a DHCP. And then you can also set up the chain forwarding. So if you're doing like a pixie booting or anything like that, you can have the pfSense, the firewall configured to be able to know where it needs to forward after it's done its DHCP portion, where to send the system next for TFTP, LDAP, Pixie, things like that. So, for example, if you had provisioning set up in satellite, then you would configure the chain booting in pfSense so that after it picks up the DHCP, it'll forward it to satellite to be able to grab the image to provision. It's got the firewall. That's the core feature that it does. It's pretty easy to use. You just set up your firewall rules. It goes by the first rule first, and then it runs through the rest of them. You see here, I got the WAN access available to be able to hit it since it's on my internal network. Otherwise I would have to be on a VM inside of a different network to be able to get to it, because by default pfSense turns off access to the web UI through the WAN interface, so you have to turn that on manually. It can also function as a VPN if you're so inclined to configure it. And just like any other router that's still loading, but just like any other router that you would use at home or in an enterprise environment, it can be your VPN gateway to be able to remote into your network. And so one of the main reasons that I deployed pfSense inside of my lab is, and I'll switch my shared screen. So inside of here in my Rev network, I have multiple VLANs that I'm running in for my provisioning network, and then for my OpenStack management network, which I just use as a test network. But I don't have a physical switch that's capable of routing. I don't have a fully managed switch that can do it. So instead of getting a fully managed switch, I instead set up pfSense so that I could be able to route those VLANs that I need inside of my home lab. And I can also route into that pfSense from my main network from like my laptop or my computer. So that was the other nice thing, is they gave me the ability to be able to SSH directly into a system that I deploy into my OSP management network right from my computer or from my laptop. So that was one of the other main reasons that I deployed it into my internal network. So I'm gonna have to stop this screen share so I can switch it to the actual screen. Switch it to the window. And so now, and then also, as with any other type of appliance, it does have a command line GUI. You can SSH to it, but you can also open up a console window to pfSense, and then here you can do some basic configurations on it, some basic administration. So if you want to reconfigure interfaces, restart it, run some ping tests, you can reboot it, you can factory reset it. And in here, it'll give you a quick breakdown of your interface setup. So you can see here, I've got my my WAN set up on my primary network, and then I've got my LAN and Op1, which I've renamed to OSP management and provisioning. Those are set up with two different VLANs that are internal to my Rev network. This is also where you go if you find yourself locked out or you don't remember your admin password, then you would go into the console, and then you would be able to reset that there to be able to get into the to get back into the web UI. Switch back to the tab. Go back to there. So here on this tab, if you wanted to do any custom routing inside of there, besides the default, then you could actually set that up inside pfSense to give it some additional routes to maybe another network device or another network entirely. So I don't have any of that set up, but if you wanted to, if you wanted to be able to do that, pfSense actually can. One of the things that I did have to do is instead of on pfSense, I actually had to go into my physical router for my main network and create a static route there so that I could actually route traffic from my PC or my laptop back through pfSense and into my virtual environment to be able to get to those VMs that are sitting on the networks that it's managing. So that was one extra step that I had to do. I don't know if that's the same for anyone else, but for me, I had to do that step in order to be able to get to pfSense. I mean, not pfSense, but be able to get to the systems that are running behind it. Let's see. I mean, it's kind of the quick and dirty on pfSense. That's how I have it set up in my environment. I'm using it to manage two networks that I couldn't otherwise route between if I didn't have a $180 fully managed switch that I was running everything off of instead. Does anybody have any questions? Anything they'd like to contribute as far as pfSense? Has anyone else used pfSense?
Hey, Keith. This is Doug. I did have a question, and also, I guess, to say I have used pfSense in the past, and it's very, very powerful, and it's a great tool. My question for you is: Are you running this on a VM, or what kind of hardware are you running this on?
It's a virtual machine. It's running in my Rev environment, and I just deployed it. Like I said, with a single CPU and 1 gig of memory, and that's all it needs to run my environment. The more network traffic you're going to be sending through it, the more interfaces it's managing, the more resources it's going to need. But that's one of the nice things is it's a very lightweight application, for managing your network without having to go out and buy an expensive switch or router to do that.
Gotcha. Yeah. I had deployed it as a VM originally, but I was using it as my primary firewall, and it caused order of operations issues for me.
Yeah,
and I had it virtualized.
Yeah, I've ran into that before.
Yeah.
Cool. Does anybody else have anything? Either something they want to know about it or some issues that they've ran into in the past?
Have you run into any issues with the file system getting corrupt on power loss?
I have not. I've lost power a few times here at my house, but I'm guessing since it's running as a VM, it just the file system might have a little more protection because I'll power everything back up and my pfSense VM spins right back up with no issues.
Yeah, that's the one issue I've been running into. I just put it on UPS, but it seems to be a common issue. I don't know if it's because it's on ZFS or a lot is kept in memory.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that one. There is one issue that I've seen myself, and Travis has seen the same behavior. And I don't know if it's just a Rev thing or if it's like maybe something in VMware as well. I've seen sometimes where if a VM that I have is running on the same host that pfSense is running on, sometimes it's not letting that traffic out, even though pings will work, but SSH won't work. Playbooks won't be able to reach it, won't be able to go in or out to that VM until I migrate either pfSense or that VM to a different host, and then it starts allowing the traffic again. It hasn't done it for a while, but a few months ago it was doing that quite frequently where I would have to make sure my VMs would go to another host that pfSense wasn't running on.
Any other packages that you find really helpful on it?
I haven't run any extra packages on mine now. In the past, because I use pfSense quite a while ago, back in like 2014, and I was running Snort IDS on it at the time, but that was for a school project I was doing when I was back at South Florida. So I was running some traffic analysis, and I was essentially running a honeypot. So I was using pfSense with Snort loaded into it as well, and then some custom rules as well as basic Snort, the standard Snort IDS rule set to be able to see, what was happening across my network on the honeypot. And it was pretty cool. I was able to see Snort picked up my Doom traffic, which is a really old virus. But Snort IDS picked up my Doom trying to get into one of my systems and deliver its payload. But that's the only one that I've ran. Like I said, it can do the iPerf, and it can also I think it's got a few different ARP packages you can install to it as well.
There is a configuration backup plugin, or at least there was back on 2.3, that I highly recommend, especially in the past. I was traveling on the road, and one of I forget which rule, or maybe it was something I was playing with remotely, and chopped my legs out from under my and I had to basically walk the wife through restoring a past config over the phone. And I'm sure a lot of your better halves and spouses and everything aren't as technical as we are, so I highly recommend having good backups in the process to have a loved one restore if you're traveling anyway.
Any more questions, or anybody else have any personal experience with pfSense? Are there any other areas in pfSense that you guys might want to see? Maybe a different setting or config that you were curious about?
Hey, Keith, can I ask a question before you go on? I'm sorry I was on mute. I didn't get the chance to get it out.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So is this built on OpenBSD?
It's built on FreeBSD.
FreeBSD. Okay. All right. Good. Yeah, like back in the 90s, I actually tried to build a firewall for my company at the time with OpenBSD and all the tools back then. And as Doug was saying, don't ever do it remote, because I brought the whole company to its knees. It was so slow. Yeah, drive 32 miles to go fix it. But I was just wondering how obviously it's progressed leaps and bounds from then, anything that would have been done back then. So yeah. That's all I had. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. But yeah, it's built off of FreeBSD, and it's their sort of their largest contributor to it is I think it's a Netgate is the biggest contributor, because if you buy any of the physical appliances that are supported, it's Netgate that's providing those appliances and that support.
Yeah, one plugin I can recommend anybody using it, the Acme plugin. So if you're using like Let's Encrypt, you can have it generate the keys and everything for you. That was one that I used to use in the past a lot.
Oh, yeah. I have to put that one on there.
Yeah, and then the APC UPSD, have it connected to a UPS, or if you have it connected to a network-based one, or if you have it connected to a different server.
Yeah, there's also NUT, which is a network UPS tool that's on there.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm using. Having some issues with it, so just got to keep messing around.
Yeah, I couldn't get NUT to work right. Well, not on pfSense, but on my Unraid instance, I couldn't get it to work right with my CyberPower. But the APC UPSD one worked fine.
Okay.
Keith, have you or Doug done anything with the VPN side of it there? What all does that have?
I haven't done anything with the VPN side. I run my VPN off of my primary router. But it's got an IPsec layer 2 tunnel in it.
Yeah, I've in the past when I had done it, I followed a guide to do the basically what Keith had described, and it was one of those things where it's a pain to set it up, but just follow a good guide. I had using the L2 TP server and some certs, and it speed wise it worked great. I was able to get full speeds out of mine. I would say that at that time it was probably about 500 down and 10 up, and I would get full speeds on a 2 gigs of memory, and with full IPS turned on, with that, which is usually the killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just running OpenVPN on it. No problems with it. Actually found the setup on it really easy with, it kind of generates the, I think it generated the install file for the clients.
Oh, that's even easier.
Well, that's all I have for everyone. I just kind of wanted to share with you guys, how I'm using pfSense in my lab environment, how I have it configured. And, I highly recommend it. If you just have some quick networks, test networks that you want to, deploy an environment, make sure things function, pfSense is the community edition is perfect for that. You just deploy that alongside your systems and your networks, configure its interfaces, and you're pretty much rocking and rolling.
Good deal. Thank you, Keith. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Keith.
Thanks, man.
And we're always looking for presenters. If anybody's interested or knows anybody that might present on something interesting, just reach out to me or Keith, and check any of the websites that I don't know what everybody used to get here, whether it was Meetups or Facebook or the WB LUG page, but I constantly update all those with the latest stuff. And this presentation I'll get uploaded to YouTube if you want to share it to anybody with anybody else.